Will we come out of executive session?
Okay, we're now in the executive session. You need a
Need
vote.
a second.
Yeah, motion and second. Yeah,
Okay. Mr. Lawson,
Yes.
Mr. Silver, Mr. Smith, Mr. Hobbs,
okay. Yes.
Mr. Marshall,
Yes.
Mr. Fowler, and Mr. Johnson.
Yes.
Okay. All right, that's it. This meeting's adjourned.
One statement.
Mr. President, I'd like to ask the city attorney some questions on the record, just for purposes of what action is taking place, if you don't mind.
Okay.
Mr. Johnson, is it true that a protective order exists in the case City of Alexandria versus Clico Corporation et al. Civil action number 05-CV-1121 in the federal court pending at this time?
Yes, it is. That's the current case that's in mediation right now.
And is that one of the items that we were going to discuss today in executive session?
Yes, it is. It's on the agenda today for June 12, 2007, 11 a.m.
Is it true that in that case there is a protective order that could subject any of the signatories to that order to contempt of court for violating that order?
Yes, it is. Anyone who has not signed the confidentiality agreement cannot participate in discussions involving the issues in the mediation.
And is that protective order, do those items limit participation to the items approved by the court in that protective order?
That is true.
And that will be limited to lead counsel and other parties within the city, is that correct?
That's correct.
And lead counsel for the city is the person reposed with the responsibility to make those determinations?
Yes.
Is it true that Mrs. Bridget Brown or Miss Bridget Brown is not enrolled in City of Alexandria versus Clico Corporation?
That is correct. Judge Drell signed an order, I believe, on Friday of last week, removing her from the case as counsel of record.
Why?
Is it true
Why?
that,
Who asked them to?
Ms. Brown, can we finish doing this and then you may talk?
Sure.
Is it true that she currently has an adverse position to the City of Alexandria in the case of City of Alexandria versus Clico Corporation?
That's correct. She has an intervention in that suit for her attorney's fees.
Okay. And is it true that she is represented by an attorney, Larry English, in that case?
That is correct.
Is it true that her attorney in that case is the principal lawyer in the case known as Armistead Franklin versus the City of Alexandria?
Yes, that's the class action that involves the field cost adjustment dispute.
Is it true that we were going to discuss that case potentially in executive session?
Yes, it is. It's on the city council agenda today for Tuesday, June 12, 2007 at 11 a.m.
Okay, is it true that your clients include the executive branch, which would be the mayor's office and the city council?
That is correct. I have dual responsibility under the charter.
And so you have two constituents under the charter, and those constituents represent the City of Alexandria, the citizens.
That is correct.
Okay. Is it true that under the charter, specifically section 402, you are the head of the legal division appointed by the mayor subject to confirmation of the council?
That is correct.
Okay, is it true that under the city charter, you serve as chief legal advisor to the mayor, city council, and all divisions, departments, offices, and agencies?
That is correct.
And is it also true that you represent the city in all legal proceedings?
That is correct.
Is it true that you also appoint to serve at your pleasure, subject to council approval, all city attorneys and assistant city attorneys?
That is correct.
Is it true that the charter provides that any special legal counsel by the city must have a written contract approved by the council?
That is correct.
And is it true that that simply authorizes any persons outside of the normal employment of lawyers for accountability purposes to have a contract that has to be approved by the council?
Correct.
So the council approves the contracts. Has there been any case at which time you have taken some action to sever a contract with Ms. Brown or say that it is null and void?
No, I never said the contract was null and void.
Do you feel that it's your authority to decide what lawyers working for the city do in certain cases?
Yes, I have responsibility under the charter to supervise all attorneys who do work for the city.
As a lawyer, is it your understanding that the conduct of attorneys is not governed by the city council, but by Supreme Court rules, specifically the rules of professional conduct and the city charter itself?
Yes.
Do you have an opinion about whether Ms. Brown could participate in the executive session that we just attempted to hold?
It's my opinion, my legal opinion, Mayor, that Ms. Brown cannot participate in that proceeding. I have advised you of that opinion. It's also my opinion that significant issues exist as far as conflict. She does have a pending lawsuit against us. I don't understand how she thinks she can be suing us and representing us at the same time. First year lawsuit student will know that. There's also a protective order that Judge Drell has out there in the Clico case. She's not a signatory. She's not a signatory to the confidentiality agreement, so she can't be present, and we would be in violation of the court's order if we discuss that information in front of her.
Okay. And it is not the position that anything, what we're trying to do here is avoid a problem. And that's the advice that you've given to me, is that correct?
Yes.
And have you relayed all this to the council as well?
I spoke to them briefly before we came back outside here just now.
Mr. Johnson, do you know if, do you know, Ms. Brown just pointed out that would be a no. When did we find out that Ms. Brown was going to be participating today in the
I
executive session?
received a letter at my office just before this meeting started today. It's my understanding the letters were delivered by Ms. Brown informing me that she was still in the case and that I had no authority to remove her from the case. That letter was signed by Mr. Johnson, Mr. Marshall, Mr. Hobbs, Mr. Lawson, and Mr. Smith.
All right, and just for the public's purposes and for the council and for any other interested parties, the point of this is not to disparage anybody, not to my end. There have been decisions made. We need to move forward. This is a serious problem for Alexandria citizens. The citizens are the ones who are suffering because of this kind of conflict within the legal team for the city of Alexandria. There is an adverse proceeding that's going on right now in the federal court. I can't divorce myself from the fact, gentlemen, that I'm also a lawyer and that I believe that there are problems there. I'm not saying that there's anything wrong at this point. I'm saying that there is a problem with an attorney who has an adverse position to the city and an attorney with whom there's an adverse position with the executive branch. Ms. Brown has let me know on occasions that she represents the council. My problem with that is, under the constituent rule, gentlemen, she represents the city, not just the council. There's a case that has been talked about, Roy v. Humphreys. That case stands for the proposition that when the council and the mayor are suing each other, each may have their own lawyer. And gentlemen, I would ask that there be some decorum here. I'm the elected chief administrator of the city talking to the council. Normally, people aren't allowed just to talk while we're doing it. If this body wants to give Ms. Brown the opportunity, and they should, to talk after the meeting, I'd ask that that happen. But I'd like to be able to finish my statement. And I would ask that the chair direct that so that I can finish my statement. Mr. President, will you give me that professional courtesy, sir? Thank you. I believe that we have a serious situation that the only beneficiary of it is any parties that have adverse positions to us. We need to be able to talk about legal matters when executive sessions are appropriate, and we need to be able to do that without all the rancor, distrust, and other things that have gone on. There's nothing that the administration has done, either through the city attorney or anyone else, to misinform this body or do anything but our jobs. This is difficult enough to deal with as it is. There's been no action taken against Ms. Brown that is addressed by the letter, with all due respect, that I read today, that I just received moments before we came into session about Ms. Brown's status in this case. No one told her her contract was invalid or anything else. And that's all been made clear over these months. I don't know what changed in the last 24 or 48 hours, but the bigger thing I'd like to highlight, the legal part, Mr. Johnson has addressed is, gentlemen, I don't think it's fair to the citizens that the other coordinate branch of government gets notice of these kind of important things moments before it occurs. I don't think that's appropriate. I don't do it to you. I never do that to you. And I would ask that you not do that to me in the future. It's, again, difficult enough to deal with these things. Thank you very much for listening to me.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Who has the right to take a legal position with the city of Alexandria?
I don't think I understand the question.
Who's authorized to take a legal position for the city of Alexandria?
I'm the chief legal advisor.
So you have the sole authority to take a legal position?
I have the authority to supervise any attorney who does work for
No,
the city.
I'm asking about a legal position. I read that we were taking something to federal court in the newspaper, by the way.
I have the authority to direct the city's strategy in all litigation.
So you have the authorities, what you're telling me, as the city attorney, to decide whether something goes to federal court or not,
Yes, I do.
without the body?
Yes, I do, if I believe it's in the best interest of the city.
So you have the authority to take a legal position,
I think I have the authority to practice law in a manner that's in the best interest of the city.
but can you take a position?
I would never allow this case to remain in state court because it's
No,
not in the best
and that,
interest
I
of the
use that
city.
as an example.
And-
Can you take a
and-
position, can you take a position, scratch this case, can you take a position for this city without the authority of the city council,
Can I take a position?
a legal
I
position?
can,
Not if-
I can
not if the
advocate.
council directs
Mr.
you not
Legal
to.
Counsel, Mr.
I
Wright?
understand.
I can advocate what I believe to be the position that is in the best.
But you
interest
cannot
of the
take a
city.
position.
You mean to take official action?
Can you take a position, an
I
official
cannot
position?
take action that this council directs me not to. No.
The other thing is, do you think this council would violate any law?
I
Have
think
you
that
shared-
there's some people
have you shared
on
with
this
this council
who are
that-
actively colluding with parties who are adverse to the interests of the citizens of Alexandria.
When-
Yes, I do.
Have you produced,
Yes, I do.
have you produced the opinion prior to us just saying it? You say you whispered it, what you did to maybe a couple of city councilmen. I don't think this council has ever taken a position that was an illegal position based on what you have suggested.
I think the letter that's signed by the 5 councilmen I just mentioned is adverse to the interests of the city. of
But is it illegal
I think it's unethical.
or
I
unethical?
think it's for a court to decide if it's illegal.
What was incorrect about the letter?
Well, because Ms. Brown has been removed as counsel of record by the court in this case. She was removed by the court, by court order. She
Okay.
has not signed the confidentiality agreement. There's a
Let me
protective
say
order.
beyond all this, I agree with the
Let me
mayor.
finish, Mr. Lawson.
This thing is bigger than
And
what we're
we're-
talking about
Right,
here.
and we're gonna let the judge
And,
decide.
and you're
That's-
exactly right. I think that's what
we
needs
do.
to
We'll
happen.
just let the federal court decide
I
who
concur
are the
with that.
lawyers in this case and what the lines of authority are.
Now, as far as any other legal positions though, I hear what you're saying, that you have the authority.
Yes.
I disagree with that.
You don't believe that I have the authority to use.
To
the
take a legal
best interest
position.
of the city.
This is
No, but
counterproductive, Mr.
that, here's the
Lawson.
problem.
to-
That is a huge statement he just made. You do not have the authority.
Mr. Lawson,
to
what
take a
he's
legal
saying
position.
is, if the council directs him not to do something, he can't. There are places in your own code of ordinances that direct matters under certain amounts he can settle. I hope the council's not
But we're
suggesting
giving
it's
him
in
the
a better
authority.
position
That's again giving him
to
the authority
judge
to
the
do.
legal consequences of acts than a lawyer
No,
is.
but we're in the position to make that determination.
I understand that, and you have been given the information to make decisions in great
I
detail.
want him
If you
to
compared it to
appreciate what I appreciate about his role. He's not authorized, in my position, to take a legal position. Unless this council gives him a position to take.
When y'all get through, I have one
So
question.
your position, Mr. Lawson, is that the council directs the day-to-day legal operations
We
of the city?
direct the policies, procedures, and then he is charged with making sure they're carried out. He can't take a legal position. Now, if I'm wrong, I will wait for you to bring the statute that gives him the authority, absent of an ordinance of this council, that allows him to take a legal position without the city council giving him authority.
Well, if the council directs him not to do something, he has to follow that. But the city charter at 4-02B states that he shall represent the city in all legal proceedings.
But it gives him authority in that,
Well, implicit in representation, Mr. Lawson, but always in conjunction with the rules of professional conduct, is the ability to make decisions as a lawyer.
But-
That's part of the whole
but by
thing.
no means should this council, and I know not this councilman, will ever do anything to defy a federal court order. So I'm,
But that's what this council was asking the city attorney to do moments
I'm not
ago.
asking you to do that.
Okay,
If
well-
that's defined, I'm not asking you to do
Mr.
that.
Hobbs,
Letter says
Hold on,
that
hold on,
somebody-
hold on.
Mr. Hobbs, two questions. Is this a city council meeting or is this the mayor's meeting?
City council.
Okay, now, did the city council decide to go into executive session? Okay. Is it my understanding that the city council can invite into its executive session to answer any questions that they have, anyone they choose to? Okay. The second thing I want to ask you, Mr. Hobbs, is
Wait, can
In-
I ask you a question, please? An answer to that question, I don't think you got the proper answer. We were at the mandate, under the mandate of the federal court, so therefore, we just cannot indiscriminately invite people in. We're governed by the federal statute.
the mandate for the federal court decides what matters may and may not be discussed. It doesn't tell you who you can invite into your executive session, nor does the court choose a lawyer for you, Mr. Silver. Clients choose lawyers. I know of no courtroom anywhere in America where the judge tells you who your lawyer is going to be, unless you're indigent and you can't afford counsel and they appoint someone to you. But in a civil proceeding, the client chooses the lawyer, as it did in this case. The client chooses the lawyer. And Mr. Hobbs, for the record, in the executive session, did you ask the two other lawyers, Mr. John Sharp and Mr. Craig Davidson, to be present in that executive session so you could ask them some questions? And did they refuse to show up? Okay, now,
For
the
the
last
record,
thing I want
both
to make clear
attorneys are
is,
here and have not refused to show up at all. They refused only to participate because their law license is on the line. If Ms. Brown was participating, the council members that are present here, with the exception of Mr. Silver, for the record, were upstairs moments ago in my office and were insisting that those two attorneys participate, at least as related to us. I can't say that all of you said that they participate and that it be in the presence of Ms. Brown. They will not participate because their assertion is.
Well, that was an executive session discussion, first of all.
I see,
We were
Mayor,
executive
let
session.
me say something in this, because I think our reputations have been questioned.
Not by me, sir. I'm not questioning your reputation at all.
Oh, yeah, I think you're legal
Okay.
person.
Let me
Chuck,
tell you what my
I've
position
listened
is.
to you. I've listened to you.
I
I have
question-
listened to you.
Wait one, guys, 1 second.
I have listened.
Before we say anything else, let's do it one at a time.
Yeah.
Hold on,
I question
But-
the wisdom of including someone in executive session who is
Mr.
not the
Johnson, I have
signatory to a
listened to you.
confidentiality
I have
agreement.
listened to
It's
you
not in the
patiently.
best interest of the city.
I have listened to you very patiently. I've listened to the mayor. I've listened to Ms. Brown. Mr. Johnson, you have to yet to talk to me in reference to really what's really going on. You're the city attorney.
Right.
I've heard more from Ms. Brown. I haven't really heard too much of nothing from you.
I'm at my office every day until 6 o'clock.
But see now, you're telling me that
I see you at least three times a week at the Holiday Inn.
at lunch.
If you wanted
How
to
you doing,
see
Chuck?
me,
But Chuck,
you can speak to
we
me
have
at
not.
any
You
time.
have show me in writing that you have given me anything in detail
Anytime
that
you
Judge
wanna come,
Drell
you are
has
free
given to us in writing.
You are free to see.
Where
me
is it?
anytime you
No.
wish.
Where is it that you have shown me all of
It's
these
in my
directives?
office. You can come see. It's public record.
Hey, you saying that we're violating it, and I have not been advised of it.
Ms. Brown has a copy of it. She could have told you that.
But you're the
She
city
knows
attorney.
that
You
it's
are
in
the city
violation of the
attorney.
court. I didn't know about these letters until we got here this morning. If you had asked me, Mr. Johnson, is it ethical for us to sign these letters? I would say no. If you had asked me, Mr. Johnson, is it legal in your opinion for her to participate in executive session where there's a protective order, specifically where the judge says no signatory. Let me finish, Mr. Lawson.
Okay.
I've been screamed at. Let me finish.
No,
I would have advised
really,
you not to sign it. I would have advised you also not to allow her to participate.
Let me make something clear, though, Mayor, you said, which is incorrect. I requested that our attorneys, you, our city attorney, come down absent of Ms. Brown.
Mr.
So
Lawson,
you missed that one.
When I asked you walking out the door, is Ms. Brown going to participate?
I said I
You
didn't
said,
know.
not that I know of, or
Right.
I don't know.
That's very accurate.
When I was upstairs, Mr. Gist and Mr. Silver and Mr. Johnson all came into the room in front of 5 witnesses and said that that's what was being directed by the council.
Mr. Gist, did I ask you to go get our attorneys that represent us so we can at least talk about the Armstead case absent of Ms. Brown? Did I ask you that?
I understand that you said the
Okay.
Armstead
Have
case
I seen
absent
them?
those
Have I
attorneys.
seen them?
But
They're,
Mayor,
they're here and ready and willing to talk, but nobody ever came in and said, look, we've got this thing resolved. When I walked into the room, after Mr. Gist related that to me, I walked straight into the kitchen and into the room. You were all in the council room, minus Mr. Johnson, who was still in my office, and Miss Brown was present in the room. We had been told moments before when Mr. Gist came up that Miss Brown had left. She was now in the mayor's conference room upstairs. That is why I made that assumption, sir, and it was very reasonable under the
Well,
circumstances.
that was
Mayor,
incorrect then.
I did ask the mayor, the city attorney, and I went to look at his office, said we need to come to some common resolve. Am I correct, Mayor? To solve this problem. The
That's,
problem we're faced with right now.
Right.
and that's what
And
we're,
let me say
We
this.
are going to solve it. Judge Drell is going to decide.
And let me say this. Let me say this. Let me finish. And one thing I would like to say is this. I know what was said between you and Mr. Marshall, the line of communications. There has to be a better line and form of communications. And what you stated a few minutes ago about what took place in the city with Ms. Brown, with the judge, Mr. Johnson, I did not know.
Did I know what?
What took place, you said the action decision that he made last week in regards to Ms. Brown.
We already about the entire council.
I was misinformed.
filed
Wait, let me finish, Mr. Johnson.
motion-
Just understand, I did not know.
I filed a
What
motion
was
to
filed?
enroll myself and to substitute Kelvin Sanders out.
Right.
That's
Right,
because he's no longer city attorney. As part of that motion, Ms. Brown was removed because she has a lawsuit which is adverse to the
He
city.
filed a motion
She's
to
suing
withdraw
us
me.
in the same case.
That is
She can't be
incorrect.
the lawyer for the city and be suing us in the same
That
case.
is incorrect.
And I think,
Do you understand?
yeah,
You
and let me say
understand that?
this. Let me say this, and let me finish before anyone say anything else. I think everything that's been said here today, listening to all these different conversations, it comes to one thing. The lines of communications that we must do.
I agree with you.
And the lines of communication to get the job done, when what's at stake should be at first, and number one, the citizens of this great city.
Mr. Johnson, on June
I'm
6th, there was
not
an
gonna
article on the
answer your
front page of the
question.
paper that
not
said that there had been a status conference in the case. Mr. Hobbs is president of the council. Did your lawyer inform you there was a status conference hearing on June 5th, the day before? Did you get a notice from the city attorney?
Let me
Never
answer
heard
that
from him.
question. I called the judge myself and asked him if you could participate. I did.
did Mr. Hobbs participate?
Yes, he did.
Yes, he did.
Yes, he
Can
did.
Mr. Hobbs participate as a client in his own case? I've heard it all.
Ms. Brown,
I've been
I move
back
on
here,
to-
hold on.
I've been back here listening, and I'm gonna say one thing, again, I've been representing the city for 30 years. I will say this about this case. Mrs. Brown, through her attorney, Larry English, has filed a petition to intervene in this case. She is withdrawn from representation. She has filed a separate claim against the city. She is an adverse party to the city. She is an attorney. She knows what the rules are supposed to say. I do not think Ms. Brown can come into the room. I don't even know that Ms. Brown should be here publicly commenting to you since she has an ongoing suit against the city of Alexandria that grows out of these issues. With that said, I think that that's all I can really add to this at this time. Thank you.
Isn't Mr. Gist tell you about the June 5th status conference? Mr. Hall?
I was aware of the June 6th status conference.
And with that, I'm out of here, gentlemen.
I was aware of the June 6th status conference.
I will be available 24/7 as I have been throughout these proceedings.
I was available,
Never
and
heard from him, did you, Mr. Hobbs? Two lawyers representing you, never heard from him. When I called you as your lawyer, notified you that there was a status conference and you needed to be
Ms.
present.
Brown.
I think Mr. Hobbs knows who was at the June 6th conference because he was there. Ms. Brown is not part of this representation at this time.
Mr. Gist, I'd like to ask you a question. Am I, as the mayor of the city, a client of Mr. Johnson?
Yes,
I represent the executive branch.
yes. the
Is it true
constituent-
that I'm considered a constituent under the rules?
Under the rules of
And so are the
professional,
council members.
Well,
Under-
I'm getting there, Ms. Brown.
under the
So are the
rule,
council members.
under the rules of professional conduct, you are considered a constituent client.
Okay,
The client is the city of Alexandria.
and that's what I stated earlier to the public. Is that not true?
Correct.
And then the other constituent would be the city council, which also represents the city of Alexandria. Is that right?
And
It's not finally, Ms. Brown. I stated that at the very beginning of the discussion.
For instance, I represent the city of Alexandria.
Mr. President, we have too much lawyering going on.
No, no,
And
Mr.
I'm not
Mr.
trying to
Lawson,
say
this is important to make a
I
record.
understand what you're saying, but I want to
We
get
need
back
to
where
make
we're
a
dealing
record
with
because
this.
this is gonna go, record's gonna be used. We'd like to use this forum to make a record that's gonna be used. So when you use the term client, it includes both the council and the executive branch, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Can a lawyer, regardless of the city charter, any contract, take a position adverse to a client or the constituent?
No.
Okay. Unless there's informed consent. But absent some type of informed
Correct.
consent, can a lawyer take an adverse position to either constituent if it affects the city in a negative way?
No, there's a special rule that deals with that, too.
I'm glad they apply to all the lawyers in this room.
Yes. One more question. Can a lawyer represent a client and sue a client
No.
in the same suit?
What's your definition of intervention? Intervention means to go in between, to
we-
intertwine.
It looks like they need to
As
talk
opposed to
and
the word adversarial.
we
Can
need to
somebody
find out how
intervention?
we can get informed about what's going on with this case. I still want to hear what's going on, at least in the Armstead case. This is getting us nowhere, quite frankly.
Thank you.
I want to hear
But these
what's
actions
happening
were
in
started by the
Armstead
council,
case.
Mr. Lawson. That's
No,
why we're
well,
getting
let me-
nowhere.
But
How dare the
Mr.
council take
Mr.
position? How dare they have a single
Miss,
law? How dare they do what they are bound by statute and law to do, and that
Sharpen and
is
Philip.
represent their constituency,
Who's
of which
representing
I'm
us with
also a
the
member.
Armstead case?
How dare they?
Well,
Because anybody disagreeing
Okay.
with
Mr.
the
Lawson, I
administration
don't-
is a violation of some ethical rule.
You know that I don't take that position.
where are we
You
with
and I
the
deal with
Armstead
things,
case? So we
every
can
day.
Okay. We're not gonna settle nothing today, and I don't know where none of this is going, so I'm gonna end this meeting as of this time.
I mean,